everyone in the LGBTIAQ community and people who are coming out into the LGBTIAQ community. My name is Yahya Mayet, and it's a bit of a tough one. And to give you a bit of context, it is from a traditionally Islamic Indian community name. And I basically want to share with you my story with coming out as a gay man within a traditionally very conservative, very, in my view, very repressive community, where being different in almost any way was kind of pushed down, or kind of pushed into a closet, but pushed into a closet and shot into space and left completely alone. Growing up was a very different and unique experience, because as you grow up, you form your identity, your religion, your friends at school, your friends in your religious aspects forms part of who you are. And as I was going through my adolescence, or actually from my childhood to my adolescence, there was this sense of differentness, of being very questioning and very curious. And in a culture where you weren't allowed to ask any questions, where you just respected your elders, and especially questions around gender, around sexuality, where I remember quite clearly wearing the traditional Indian outfit or Muslim outfit, which is kind of like a big dress, or which I thought was a really big dress, and running around and twirling around in it, and then people looking at me really strangely and like, you shouldn't be twirling in it, you should be acting very manly in it. And then starting to get these kind of attractions to men or to boys, and not really knowing how to navigate that. And I remember very clearly instances in my family where remarks were made against LGBTI people, more specifically gay people, where they used the traditional term of moffy to describe a gay person. And I just knew that the word moffy was so, somehow I just knew it was wrong, and somehow I knew it was me. And throughout the entire experience, as I got through high school, I finally started grappling with it. And I remember very clearly, as any adolescence, I had a high hormone drive and growth spurt. And what really troubles me is the injustice of gay people, especially kind of Indian people, where you're not allowed to explore your sexuality. And I remember very clearly when I'm trying to navigate a space of discovering your body and discovering your sexuality, and a simple thing as masturbation became almost taboo to myself, which I find now, looking back at it, so sad that when I used to masturbate, the feeling afterwards was extreme guilt, because in my head there would be pictures of men, and afterwards trying to replace the image of the man with an image of woman and trying to justify that, which is a very interesting experience. But as I went on, it was very tough, and I didn't come out for a very long time. I went to university where things were a bit more liberal, and I was away from my family. I moved to Cape Town for that, so I was completely out of my family home, and it gave me the opportunity to really explore who I was, and the fantastic nature of being LGBTIQ, I feel, is this ability to really question and explore and be creative and push boundaries, which I feel is so important, and the reason why we need to tell these stories, and more specifically African stories. And I know during my end of my first year, I was so repressed that I actually did suffer a nervous breakdown. I was just so, I came to the level of acceptance of, I know I'm gay, but how do I navigate this in this religious Islamic community? When my mom is a religious teacher, my entire family prays 5 times a day. And initially I came out to a very small circle of friends, to my best friend, who initially didn't believe me, and eventually went into long-term psychological therapy just to get help, get support. And the biggest advice for coming out that I could give, especially to people who are in my situation, is really, you don't need to do the traditional, or the process of coming out doesn't need to be the traditional Hollywood version of this big blast. I'm out, I'm here, I'm going to wear my feather boa and go out. It really is very different and very nuanced. And to get those 1 or 2 people to be your support base is so important. And reaching out to people like out or kind of LGBTIQ centers is even more important. You find a broader sense of community and you feel less alone. And once I started doing that, I went through university but still stayed in the closet. As soon as I finished university and I moved back home, I've had this full identity of being a proud gay man, but then going back into the closet to fit in with my home environment. And it was very interesting. I would go to work and be actually out at work and come back home, and I'd be a completely different personality. The dial would be switched back and I wouldn't be the person who I knew myself to be. And I first came out to my brother, who I thought was slightly within my age range, 2 years older than me, so he would maybe understand the concepts. And he initially was very accepting, but as time has gone on, his levels of homophobia still came out. What's very interesting is when I came out to him, he was very accepting, and then when I came out to my mom, she took it very, very hard, being very religious. And she attributed homosexuality to a disease like alcoholism or extreme drug abuse. And it was something that she felt she could fix through prayer. And it was, strangely enough, she's still going through her journey of realizing me as a gay man and recognizing myself and my partner as a gay couple, or just a couple, which I'd like her to see me as. And life has gotten extremely, extremely good since my coming out. There are still a lot of hiccups along the way, and the biggest sense of greatness is finding someone who I love and someone who accepts me for who I am, and having the ability to express myself and be completely free, tell my story, encourage other people, especially within the Indian community in South Africa, which is so repressed, to I don't want to use the word role model, but actually be a figurehead for saying it's okay, life goes on. And I found a fantastic partner, I found fantastic friends, and even in my workplace, it's given me the confidence to be completely free in my workplace. And I sprinkle my little fairy dust in the workplace, which is fantastic. And I'm actually, it's not seen as anything different. I'm just another personality. I'm not a gay personality, I'm not a straight personality, I'm just a vibrant personality. The challenges which came with it is really, the sad part of it is really the loss of family. When I fully came out to my full extended family, I moved in with my partner of 5 years now, which we've been living together about a year and a half. And the saddest part was the loss of family. Growing up in a traditional Indian family, you always have that closeness of having a lot of family functions, and now a lot of the broader family has cut themselves off with me to not be associated with me. And that sense of isolation at times can be very depressing. But on the flip side, rather strangely, my mom, who is extremely religious, is actually one of the only people in my family who I have contact with. And she's the only one which I'm building a relationship with. And the greatest thing about my coming out is my mom and I are actually forging a true relationship, and not the traditional Islamic relationship of I obey whatever you say, but more a genuine, loving relationship, which I feel would not have happened if this didn't happen. And strangely enough, my mom, when I had an honest discussion with her, she said, I actually did know you were gay, but I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And strangely enough, I'm the son, well, my brother's the elder one, but I'm the son that she always used to confide in. And I don't know if that is me she was also kind of an underdog in the family as well, so I'm sure we gravitated towards that and we spoke a lot. And I think the reason why our relationship has gone so much better is she's realized that the isolation which I felt, the amount of grief and the amount of almost to the point of insanity where you get so anxious about stuff. And I remember just when I wanted to go into a family situation and people used to be like, when are you getting married, when are you getting married? And always just worrying, when is someone going to find out, and when are they going to come with the pitchforks and the fire and burn me alive? And I must say, my family can be quite violent, and if you are in a situation where you feel your family might be violent, yes, there might be credibility to that, and you need to safeguard yourself against that. Strangely enough, I have experienced no overt physical violence. There's been mild threats from my dad, but it's all speak. And I think he's realized, and I've been very vocal about it, that you can break me as a person, but you're not going to break what I'm trying to give. And that is a sense of hope and a sense of justice to everyone who is different and everyone who wants to be part of a whole society of caring and justice and just pure equality. And I think really that's the biggest thing for me, was getting the sense of joy, this ultimate sense of being me and being authentic, I think is the fundamental basis of human existence, of just being you. And when you go through your pathway, and I strongly believe there's not one pathway of discovering yourself, whether you're gay, straight, and you shouldn't limit yourself in any way. Your coming out will be very different to mine or very similar to mine, but finding those few people that can support you through your journey will ultimately take you to a place of, I want to use the description of running through a field of flowers, and to some extent it's that sense of joy that you get with discovering yourself. And through the way you have to go through the forest, and you have to be pulled back by a few branches and scratched a bit. And I've always said the LGBTIQ community is one of the strongest communities in the sense of they've been through so much, and the sense of yourself becomes so much more whole and so much more cohesive than I feel, unfortunately, some of the straight counterparts don't particularly get that sense. So in a way you might feel disadvantaged in the sense of you being discriminated against, there's extreme amounts of homophobia, but by you actively fighting against that, and when I say actively fighting against, I mean fighting against in your own way, whether that's wearing your sense of makeup in your workplace, or just saying in a conversation that, oh, my partner and I, having your own sense of fighting back against these boundaries and boxes which have been put into. I think we all, and me and myself as a gay man, has a moral imperative within this African context to actually speak up and put down your stories and talk about it. And I really do think the talking and connection of human connection will ultimately solve a lot of the stresses and the anxieties which gay people face.